And, so I want to talk about your dad. And it's funny, you said, quote, he's sort of a historical figure, which is very funny because seeing the interviews that he does with and without you, he's very modest and humble. And I feel like if you were to approach him calling him a historical figure, I would be interested to see how he reacts. But being able to work with him, under him, learn from him, what's the dynamic between you and Vijay?
I mean, it's been best friend my whole life. There's not a single thing that I haven't told him since I was a kid. And to be able to have that confidant, as you get older and you see a lot of people who weren't fortunate enough to have that relationship, you exponentially realize how blessed you were.
Yeah.
To have that kind of father figure. And that'll easily be just my greatest blessing. But he's also just been someone I aspire to in so many different aspects of being a man. And you don't, again, realize that until you get older and realize what it actually is to be a man. And then you think back on some of the decisions he made, which wouldn't have been easy. And it's a constant growing appreciation. But it's been beautiful. And what I love about him is the things he doesn't know, he tells me, hey, I don't know. Go get this info from someone else, as opposed to needing to be that person who just kind of tells you everything, even if he doesn't know. So that's been a beautiful thing. And I'll probably say he's been my greatest blessing in the broadcasting side of things, because for about 20 years, since I was a kid, and he used to be doing Wimbledon for Star TV out of Asia, I would go and sleep as a kid in his broadcasting booth. So he literally Mr. Miyagi'd me.
Yeah.
And 9-10 hours a day, I would just listen to him carry the show with his partner Alan Wilkins, and have Federer come in and Sampras come in and Ivanisevic come, and I just watched this all day long, and it was just in the back of my head. So when things that I don't have to work as hard at, I still prep, of course, and work hard at my craft, but they come a little more naturally. It's because of all the time with Dad.
Yeah, it's like it was ingrained in you. You were already the nature versus nurture, if you will. I think that's so cool. And you said in an interview with Deadline, quote, "For so long, people of color have been told you can't and you won't. And your father is a man of you can and you will." And when it comes to being Indian, you said it with the Hollywood roles, like an Indian plays an Indian, and there's a lack of representation. And he kind of started it all. And what's that been like? And you don't necessarily have to follow in the shoes because he's your dad, but because of your background, you get to do all of these amazing things and be the first. So why does representation matter to you? And why is it so important for the message to say you can and you will do this?
Oh gosh. Well, I think it's so important because this is literally the stuff that moves the world forward. In any field, the minute someone does something, all of a sudden you have an army of people doing it. No one could break the 4-minute mile. No one could do it. No one. And then Roger Bannister did it. And then within 12 months, I think it was something like 13 people did it within the next 12 months. It's just believing that it is possible. Indians weren't even on the screen in Hollywood before. Yeah. Dad was the first Indian ever on American television when he played Rod Laver at the US Open on CBS. They paid $100,000 a minute to keep it going over the time limit because it was voted the match of the decade. He was the first Indian on Johnny Carson. He played a secret agent in James Bond. He was the first Indian with his own TV show. He was a bit before his time, But when I grew up, the only Indians I knew were Apu on The Simpsons, and the engineering guy you made fun of on a TV show, or the guy who didn't get the girl or the funny accent or whatever. And I was born in LA. I grew up on the Lakers and Magic, Kobe, and Shaq. I grew up on Death Row Records. I grew up on Pac. I grew up on Will Smith, Cruz, Eddie. These are my influences. So when I'm trying to aspire to that, but the world tells you no, you can't. You got to fit in this box. It doesn't register. So I think when you're in that position, it's a beautiful time now because I think the world is primed for it. But you got to kind of create your own lane. And when you're kind of set on that, you'd be amazed what, God kind of, attracts into your universe, and all the pieces start coming together to actually create that lane.
And it's interesting because even beyond Hollywood, when you were playing, you said this really awesome quote about when you're winning, especially over in India, when you're winning, you're Indian, but when you're losing, you're American born, the headline. So what's the pressure there? Because sometimes you're not Indian enough, sometimes you're not white enough. So how do you kind of deal with that when you want more representation, but you also can't represent yourself a certain way? It feels like that's kind of toying back and forth with you.
I'm glad I'm getting a chance to answer this for you now, because I would have given a different answer 15 years ago when I was playing,
Interesting.
for
Yeah.
sure. And that's absolutely right. I remember saying that probably when I was playing Davis Cup for India, and I would never forget when I win, it would say India's Prakash, and when
Uh-huh.
I lose, it would say American-born Amritraj
Wow.
loses. You know, it was wild. It was wild, but it's. I mean, look, people are going to say what they want to say at the end of the day. But again, when you're in LA and, you know, you may feel, everyone feels, oh, you know, that's the Indian kid. Or when you're in India, they may feel, oh, that's the American guy, you know? And all you want to do as a kid, obviously, is fit in. But then when you start to grow and change your perspective, you end up realizing, you know what? It's not that I was a kid without a country. I was a kid who was blessed with two different cultures.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up with all these beautiful LA things that I mentioned to you, but I still have all my South Indian roots that I grew up with in my household. What a beautiful richness that is. That means anything that I bring to the screen on sports broadcasting, acting, whatever, it's going to be unique.
Mm-hmm.
And Denzel Washington was directing Michael B. Jordan in a journal for Jordan not too long ago, a couple years ago, and Michael B. was trying to learn as much as he could on the directing side because he was about to direct Creed 3. That was his directing debut, and something I'll never forget. He said Denzel told me that universality is in the specific. The more specific you are, the more it actually relates to everyone. So instead of trying to sort of, as I was earlier, be all encompassing and make everyone okay and happy and kind of, sort of like what you're doing, now it's just about specific to you. The more specific you are, it's crazy how many more people relate.
Yeah.
So, I'm an amalgamation of two beautiful cultures. And guess what? My second best language after English is Spanish. The third is Tamil, where I understand a little bit. It used to be better, but Spanish is it because I grew up in LA.
Yeah.
So go figure.